Okay. Friends, yesterday we have discussed about the beginning of Greek historiography and how Herodotus is the first recorded historian who tried to separate history, scientific history, from mythology. We talk about logographers and we talk about how Herodotus had taken information from those people who were actually involved in the war between Greece and Iran, and also he had traveled to the places of action where all that war has taken place, the battles have taken place. And 13 years after Herodotus, a person called Thucydides was born. And during uh, just the subject matter of the history of Herodotus, when Herodotus was a child, when he was growing up, he had seen the people coming back from the war, and during his lifetime, when he was a young child, the war between Greece and Iran was fought, and Greece, having a different state, they got united together and then they fought against Iran to get liberated. Iran and Persia, they are one country, so I'll be using the word maybe alternatively, so don't get confused. Now, as Persia was defeated and Greek was liberated, they had some internal dissension, internal conflict among themselves, and that conflict resurfaced once again. And the different states, they started fighting among themselves. And there was a state called Athens, and there was a state called Sparta. So this Athens and Sparta, they fought against each other, and the person who wrote the history of that war is Thucydides. So he wrote a history of war between Athens and Sparta, both are Greek states, and he titled his history as History of Peloponnesian War. Peloponnesia was an area which was one of the important theater of war, and this History of Peloponnesian War is having 8 volumes. 7 volumes are complete and 8th volume is incomplete. That could not be completed because of his sudden death. And interesting thing is that when that war was fought between Athens and Sparta, Thucydides, he joins the navy from Athens side. His father was from Athens, and interestingly, his mother was from a portion in Sparta, an area in Sparta that is called Thrace. So his mother was from Thrace, or she was from Sparta, and father was from Athens, and he was staying with his father. Obviously, that generally happens after marriage. Woman goes to her husband's home. So he joins the Athenian navy, but in the war that was fought, Athens was defeated. Now, Athens was defeated. People started thinking about who could be responsible for the war, and they blamed that it was, apart from many other factors, it was Thucydides. He did not fight very well, as he was fighting against the state of his own mother, and he was not 100% loyal to Athens. And as a result, as a punishment to this pursued disloyalty or pursued negligence of duty during the war, Thucydides was expelled. He was expelled for 20 years. And these 20 years he utilized to write his account of the war, because he fought in the war, and while fighting in the war, just before his expulsion, he had noted down in his diary the important events of the war. And with the help of that record, he wrote this text, History of Peloponnesian War, in 8 volumes. All right. So this Peloponnesian War was fought between 459 to 406, but his description, it comes to an abrupt end at 411 BC. You remember BC and AD? BC, the longer number is the higher number is you are going deeper into the past. The closer number is you are coming closer to the present. And in case of AD, Anno Domini, the higher the number is, you are more closer to the present. For example, 2021 is very closer, it's running than the 2000. But in case of BC, 2021 will be further in the past than the 2000. I hope you understand this well. And in his History of Peloponnesian War, he reconstructs the history and he states his purpose. He states that I am writing this history of between the war between these two states, that is Athens and Sparta, with the intention that this record will be available to the coming generation. Because he writes further that the human nature doesn't change. We are still having same ambition. We are still having still jealousy, greed, and that plunges us into the conflict and war. And in case the future situation, similar kind of situation comes in the future, the coming generation will be benefited by the record of the past event. He also expresses that his writing should remain forever, and next important dimension of his writing is that he makes a very good psychoanalysis of the historical character. He was probably a very good psychologist, and by making an analysis of those historical events, he found certain universally applicable laws of history. There are certain universal applicable laws of history. For example, we have studied two dimensions of history while we were discussing the nature and scope of history. One dimension is that changes with the time, and there is an eternal dimension of history which remains forever, or at least it remains for longer period. For example, desire to hold on the power, making use of your wealth to hold the power is a universal phenomena. We find in every civilization people who are wealthy, they try to hold the political power in their own hand. The people who hold the political power in hand, they try to ensure that the power is passed on to the next generation. Even in democracy, we have political leaders, and they groom their own children as their own leader. In technically speaking, at least in theory, in democracy, everybody should be equal. But people use their man and muscle power and wealth to ensure that their own children remain in power. So by studying the phenomena, this kind of events, some deeper psychoanalysis can be made of the people, and some universal laws can be drawn from history. For example, the fertile land always attracts invader, as we see in case of India. So these are the universal laws that he tries to extract from the historical event. Then he wanted to probe deeper, discover the motive, and explain the process behind human action. He was very analytical. In comparison to the Herodotus used to gather the information. No doubt, he is the first person who gave foundation to the scientific history writing. But in comparison to Herodotus, we always find that Thucydides is always anxious and tries to make the deeper analysis of any information. He tries to find out whether the information that came to him is true or not. So in a way, he is more scientific than Herodotus. But Herodotus had one advantage over Thucydides, is that his writing is very interesting. The way he writes is quite attractive, interesting way of presentation. Like we have discussed, history is not only science, but it is an art also. It's not that you should only verify the information, but the way you present your information is also very interesting. So, but Thucydides, he says that I'm not writing to get the applause. I'm not writing to get the praise. I want to write because I want to educate the people, and that is my writing should be there forever, so that the people will learn something from me. And that is the reason, his writing has become a bit terse, bit dull, and though quite scientific. Another important thing that he differs from Herodotus is that Herodotus was having a very huge canvas. Like the war that was fought between Greece and Persia, that was fought for 20 years, and it had a lot of dimension. So the canvas of Herodotus is very huge, very large. And in contrast, Thucydides, he takes the smaller canvas, the smaller topic, but he goes very deeper. Like for example, the Peloponnesian War, and he tries to understand the different dimensions of that war, different causes and different implications that involve in the war. Like Herodotus, he did not tour to the many places, but his writing was mainly based on his own observation that he recorded during his war. His writing, as I have told you, is more scientific. He more critically evaluates the source of information, and that is the reason Will Durant, he says that Thucydides is a father of scientific history writing. Though Herodotus is generally accepted as a father of history, Thucydides is a father of scientific history writing. He also does causation. You know, we have already studied about causation, that only narrating of the event will not make our understanding of history complete, but what is to be done is causation. And Thucydides also understand that there is an interweaving of the events of history. One event become a cause for another event, and then another event, that event becomes a cause for the next event. So that causation and interconnection of the event is a very important thing that Thucydides has done quite early, thousands of years back. History is an organic process. Yeah, organic process we have already discussed. You know, organic process means that, like, you know, our brain thinks, and but our heart pumps the blood. We use our eyes to see. All these organs are work in unity. If one organ is failure or one organ is not functioning properly, that affects the whole system. Similarly, history is an organic body. History is an organic unity. One dimension of human life, maybe politics, affects the culture. Culture will affect the economy. Economy will affect the psychology. All these things are interconnected, and that is what he says. History is an organic process. Like a philosopher, as I already referred, he studies the event, goes deeper into the analysis of the historical event, and tries to do certain conclusion, which is a philosophical. Philosophy is something, you know, that is having a more longer lasting implication. Philosophy is something which is having a capacity to rise above the narrow consideration, to rise above the information and think in an innovative way, is one of the important dimension of philosophy. So he puts those important philosophical words in the mouth of his character. For example, one of the character of Thucydides writing says, the desire for popularity may lead to self-destruction. And this is interesting. You know, if you are very popular, hungry for popularity, it's quite possible that you may destroy your own life. You may destroy your peace of mind. You may destroy your career. Political injustice is worse than violence. It is not necessary that all brave men want war. It's quite possible that somebody might be very brave, but still he want to live in peace, because he understands that fighting is a very destructive action. It's mutually destructive. It destroyed the both sides. And you know, in one of the narration, Thucydides, he narrates the very harmful effect of war. Love often lures man toward destruction. I'm not going to elaborate on this. People might have a different opinion. Nemesis follow good fortune. You know, nemesis means something that is downfall, punishment. So if there is a good fortune, nemesis, that means downfall will come, punishment will come. The pleasure and pain, happiness and unhappiness, it is a cyclic process. If you are happy, you should not, you know, get very exuberant, because unhappiness may quickly follow. And we find these kind of philosophical thoughts, they are scattered in his writing. His writing is considered to be quite rigid, though he write a very accurate and trustworthy account. He uses a very rigorous scientific methodology with a very clear scientific investigation. He refuses to believe whatever comes to him, and tries to find out the fact. He uses inverse reasoning. Now, what is the meaning of inverse reasoning? You must have studied, or some of you must have prepared for reasoning that is generally in the competitive exam. For example, if you have number like 5, 10, then number is missing, and then 20. So by 5, 10, and then 20, you can imagine that there is a difference of 5 numbers in each numbers. 5, so the missing number could be 15. So that is what is called inverse reasoning. You are using the reasoning to find out something that is missing. Now, how that can be done in history? That can be done in history when you imagine how that particular person might have behaved in a particular situation. For example, if you know that Dr. Khangai is punctual in taking his class, and one day if I miss the class, probably if you are familiar with the behavior of that particular teacher, I'm just giving one example, then you will use your inverse reasoning, which is dependent on your experience with that person, and say that okay, usually this teacher is quite punctual, but probably there might be some reason that he has not came today. On the other hand, if a person is always absent, a teacher is always coming too late to the class, and so you have an experience. So if the teacher is coming one day, that late coming teacher is coming late on that day, you will use your reasoning based on your experience that oh, he is always having a habit of coming late. It happens in family. If it happens in the house, people, my family, they know me by my behavior. So even if I'm not there in front of them, they will imagine that oh, he is coming late, that means he must have got engrossed in reading in his room, or he might be playing chess. I'm fond of playing chess, or that kind of thing. Generally we do. So that is which is applicable in mathematics, which is applicable in statistics, which is applicable in our day-to-day experience, that can be used in history as well. For example, Babur's autobiography, Tuzuke Babri, there are certain gaps, but by studying the life of Babur, we can imagine that what kind of person he was, and probably how he must have behaved in that particular situation. We, by certain examples, we know the character of Chhatrapati Shivaji. He had a lot of respect for women because he had given instruction to his soldier that not to trouble the woman when you attack the enemy country, and he had a high respect for his mother. So you can use the inverse reasoning and try to analyze his character. That is called inverse reasoning, and that is what he has done. So in a way, written near about 2,500 years back, his history writing, history writing of Thucydides is very scientific. Um, he states very explicitly that history bases all its conclusion on the rational evidence. You need to have rational evidence before you conclude anything in history. And according to Collingwood, the very modern historian, he says that the style of Herodotus was very easy, spontaneous, and convincing, and the style of Thucydides was very harsh, artificial, and it was quite repellent. But Thucydides, in spite of some terse, repellent, and not very interesting style, he was a very scientific. He makes a very good psychoanalysis of the historical character, goes very deeper into the actions of the character and try to understand their psyche. He also tries to understand the economical, social, political reason behind the action. By making, one of the sentence I tell you, by making a very good analysis, he says that having a very harsh punishment is not necessary that will prevent the crime. The people, we know the crimes like murder and rape, they are having very heavy punishments, but still those things goes on. So he makes a psychoanalysis, and the historian like J.B. Bari, he says that Thucydides had done a very important work of giving a modern shape to history. But Thucydides was quite balanced also. He appreciated democracy. Athens was having democracy, but at the same time, he was aware of the shortcoming in democracy. Like there will be corruption, there will be a lot of delay. In spite of that, there is certain shortcoming. For example, he uses the chronology, but at places his chronological order is bit confusing. He is excessively relies on the eyewitnesses. So in spite of that, his writing is very, very scientific. He has taken the history writing one step ahead than Herodotus in case of scientific analysis of the historical event. But at the same time, the writing of Herodotus is much more interesting. He was a very, very good storyteller. So this is where Thucydides ends.